Good morning, everyone. Welcome to everyone here in Carson City, as well as anyone there in Las Vegas, and of course, watching online through Nellis or our legislative YouTube channel. With that, Committee Secretary, please take the roll.
Assembly members Cole, Dahlia, Gonzalez, Gray, Hanson, Hardy, LaRue Hatch, Marzola, Moore, Nadeem, Orentlicker, Roth, Urick, and Chair.
Here, and please mark members present as they arrive. Just a few housekeeping issues. Just a reminder, please make sure you turn down the sound on your electronic devices. Also, we will have a meeting that includes 3 bill hearings today, as well as public comment at the end. You will notice that members will be coming and going off of the dais today as they have presentations in other committees as well. I will provide the phone number and the meeting ID for today for those of you choosing to participate with your comments or public comment over the telephone. The phone number is 669-900-6833, and the meeting ID for today is 858-0351-1499. And with that, we will go ahead and begin with our first bill today, which I believe we are taking these out of order. So we will start with Senate Bill 76. We will then go to Senate Bill 62, and then Senate Bill 407. And so with that, Secretary, your bill hearing for SB 76 is open, and whenever you are all ready, I just want one more thing so I don't forget to say it later. Everyone, please remember to state your name and spell it the first time you speak as well, so we have it correct for the record. So with that, Secretary, your bill hearing is open, and we are ready whenever you're able to proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, and joined by Chief Deputy DeCara and Deputy Houston in Las Vegas. We are here today to present SB 76, our bill to create a restitution fund for victims of securities fraud. The Secretary of State's office Securities Division investigates reports of securities or investment fraud. Very often, victims of this kind of fraud are our most vulnerable communities, especially our senior communities, and other adults who live on fixed incomes. Due to bad actors, they can lose their life savings. We want to help get them back on their feet. In fiscal year 23, the Securities Division received complaints of fraud totaling nearly $17 million, but investors only received about $200,000 in restitution. This fund aims to fill that gap, even though it is a very big gap. We want to be mindful of the current disposition the state budget is in, so we submitted a conceptual amendment to Senate Finance to move the effective date of the funding of the restitution fund to the next biennium. So there would be no fiscal impact, and the legislature has time to consider whether that funding mechanism is appropriate. Passing SB 76 will create this important fund, and our office could start accepting gifts and grants immediately. We would be able to provide relief to Nevadans who have been taken advantage of at no cost to the state. Thank you for your time, and we're available for questions.
Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will go ahead and open it up for testimony in support of SB 76. Not seeing anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 76, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in support.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 76. Not seeing anyone here in Carson City or Las Vegas. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 76, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. I'm sorry, but I tried to testify in support, but I guess it wasn't received. But would I be possible to testify in support of this bill?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it concise. My name is Jessica Padron on behalf of AARP Nevada, and we want to testify in strong support of this bill. As the advocacy director of this organization, along with our volunteers, I've seen the huge impact that this bill would have. And this fund matters particularly because securities fraud is a crisis that disproportionately harms older Nevadans. The fund offers relief, and many victims have no way to recover stolen funds. So this would be a great way to get the ball rolling and support Nevadans, as well as strengthening trust and boosting confidence in Nevada's financial system. This is more than good policy. It's the right thing to do. And on behalf of AARP Nevada and fraud victims across the state, we urge you to support this critical measure, especially in light of the amendments. So we hope that we can count on your support, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you so much. And Jessica, will you please spell your last name, please? Okay.
One moment, Chair.
Jessica Padron, Padron.
Thank you so much. Continuing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Continuing in opposition testimony, broadcasting, are there any other callers?
Chair, there are no other callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will open it up for neutral testimony. Oh, not seeing anyone here or in Las Vegas. Sorry for the pause. I think I went to sleep for a second. Broadcasting, will you open up the lines?
Chair, the public line is open and working, and there are no callers to provide neutral testimony.
Thank you so much. Then with that, I will welcome Secretary Aguilar, and he has no final remarks. So with that, I will go ahead and close the bill hearing on Senate Bill 76. Secretary, I regret to inform you that had it not been for that one support call, you would have beat the Attorney General for the world's shortest hearing. So I'm sorry. I'll let you two handle that later, okay? Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and open up Senate Bill 62, which is from the Attorney General's office, which is revises provisions relating to crimes.
Thank you so much, Chair Miller. For the record, Teresa Benitez Thompson, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Ford. Before I begin the comments on Senate Bill 62, this will be the Attorney General's office last appearance in front of Senate Judiciary. So we want to thank you for what we believe is just a stellar session, and have been so impressed by the work that you all do. All the questions have been insightful. You're thinking about pieces of the law that make us think even harder about the law. And so I just want to thank you guys all for your introspective and for the hard work that you put in. Not buttering you up at all for this final bill.
So, Chief of Staff, do I hear you saying we're the best committee in the building, or? Whoa. Oh, I forget we have another chair here, but
as a former chair of government affairs, I think I might be betraying my own lineage to say that. But in this moment right now, absolutely, 100%.
Thank you so much,
Right.
Chief.
So Senate Bill 62, keeping in with what is a wonderful theme for today, which is compensation to different kinds of victims. Senate Bill 62 addresses three different types of victims being supported in three different kinds of ways through the state. And we are not creating these three different buckets of money. These are just kind of the way that they have been stood up. So the first one you're going to see in Section 4 is regarding the fund for the compensation of victims of crime. This is run by the Health and Human Services Office, and this is where victims of crime can certain victims of crime can apply for compensation for certain kind of harms. If you want to know what those harms are, you would look to Section 4.3. You're going to see A through L spelled out, and these are the types of victims who can apply for for compensation. We are seeking to add a new type of victim, and that's going to be K, a person who's a victim of crime of NRS 193.167 through to, and this is going to be a victim of a hate crime. What you see, what we're doing in 4.7G is we're making this specific to victims of hate crime for property damage and allowing a $1,000 remediation for that damage for that victim. We got this idea because last year when we attended a faith forum between one of the local law enforcement agencies and faith members in the area, they were talking a lot about the increase of hate crime and property damage, and just the fact that they were looking for it would be nice to have more support to address that type of crime. A lot of times insurance will cover if there's, let's say, a hate symbol on the side of a wall, but they still might have to pay a deductible of $500 to $700. And so about $1,000 would be something that could be meaningful for these types of victims. Next, in Section 5, so in Section 5 spells out the three pots of money. So 5.1 to 5.2 is the compensation that we talked about for victims of hate crime, property damage crime. That's $30,000 in each of the fiscal years. We base that on, I know it's not a perfect site, but the Nevada crime stat site tells us that last year that there were 27 incidents of property hate crime. And then it fluctuates every year. So we think we've got the number just about right sized there. Section 5.3, this pot of money is specific to our Office of Attorney General with the prosecution work that we do. So last session, the legislature was so kind in the budget bill as to give us 2 victim witness advocates. That was the first time our office has had victim witness advocates. So just like a police department or your county DAs, we've got victim witness advocates now. And one of the things that they echoed back to us was we really need to do more diligence to be in compliance with Marcy's law, and we need a little tiny pot of money to make that happen. So this is specific to our victim witness advocates to help the victims that we're serving in our prosecution cases, and that's $20,000 a year. Lastly, we had friends reach out to say we are looking for a vehicle to advocate for money for victims of human trafficking. Last session, the legislature awarded $1 million. They started off with $1 million ask. We said we'd be more than happy to help. AG Ford obviously was very supportive of this because of the economics of the session that you're all aware of. That has been whittled down to $200,000. And so that's the ask there, to continue with support for those victims specifically. That's what the ask is, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have one question. So when it comes to Section K, the new language, a person who is the victim of, is this applying only to an individual being a victim or a family and just their personal property, or would this also apply to a person applying for, and maybe their nonprofit, their faith-based organization, their school, their store, their whatever?
Thank you so much for the question. To Chair Miller, Teresa Benitez Thompson, for the record. So we believe it will be both. We were contemplating and looking at the definition of the person and how the person is defined. One of the things that will have to come as a subsequent step to this, and that we've had conversations with the Department of Health and Human Services on, is they have a victim compensation manual that runs how they govern the office and how these things work. So they're going to kind of flesh out more of the specificities. And we really actually wanted that because we didn't want to just disrupt their current workflow and say, hey, you do all these other things this way, but we want a separate application and a new process where you do things different. We wanted it to dovetail for ease of implementation and administration. So you'll see a lot of that get folded out or get fleshed out in the manual.
Okay.
The plan.
Thank you so much. With that, I don't see any additional questions, so I will go ahead and open it up for support of Senate Bill 62.
Marco Rauda, MARCO, RAUDA, representing the Nevada Policy Council on Human Trafficking. Just want to thank this committee for listening to this bill. Thank the chair and thank the sponsors, and we are in support.
Thank you so much. Not seeing anyone else here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 62, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Then I'll open it up for opposition testimony. Not seeing anyone approach here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 62, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for neutral testimony. Not seeing anyone here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 62, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will welcome, Chief of Staff, would you like to come up to make any final remarks? Okay, thank you. Then with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 62. Next up, we have Senate Bill 407, which it revises provisions relating to the Department of Indigent Defense Services. And with that, Chair Scheibel, your hearing is open, so please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair Miller and members of the Senate, not the Senate Judiciary, the Assembly Judiciary Committee. My name is Melanie Scheibel. I am the Senator for District 9. Thank you for having me this morning to discuss SB 407. SB 407 has been gutted and replaced, so I hope you are all looking at the first reprint. That's part of the reasons coming to you today and not earlier in the session. So basically what SB 407 does is it makes some changes to the administration of the Department of Indigent Defense Services. I know that you have already heard quite a bit about the Department of Indigent Defense Services, but I hope you'll indulge me just for a minute to make sure that we're all on the same page about its structure. So basically, the Department of Indigent Defense Services is the state agency that coordinates the appointment of counsel for anybody who is indigent, unable to afford their own attorney in a criminal case outside of the areas, particularly Washoe and Clark, that have robust public defender offices. So the Department of Indigent Defense Services is overseen by a board of Indigent Defense Services. The Board of Indigent Defense Services includes judges, attorneys. I think there's a district attorney on the Board of Indigent Defense Services. It's not a full-time job. They serve in an advisory capacity to kind of audit the department, ensure that people are getting adequate service, they're getting timely service, ensure that the funding is being used properly, while the Department of Indigent Defense Services itself is run by paid staff who are employees of the state. So the Department of Indigent Defense Services, overseen by the board and then run by state employees, the director is here, so he might want to weigh in, but I think of it as having two main functions or two main arms. They oversee the public defender themselves, the state public defender, who is also a state employee, who is assigned to cases on a statewide basis, just like the public defender in Clark County or Washoe County would be. The Department of Indigent Defense Services also is responsible for all of the appointed counsel or contract counsel. So that would be in a case where, and this happens all the time, say you have 3 defendants who are all charged in one case in Elko County. The state public defender can represent one of those defendants, but they can't represent all 3 because that would be a conflict of interest. So the Department of Indigent Defense Services will appoint 2 attorneys to represent those other 2 people. They are generally, criminal defense attorneys in the community who have gone through a vetting process to be added to this list of eligible appointment counsel. So that's kind of the structure of the board, the department, and the 2 sections of the department. What SB 407 does is it ensures that the executive director of the Department of Indigent Defense Services is appointed by the governor. So that person is selected directly by the governor and is overseen by the Board of Indigent Defense Services. SB 407 says that that person can only be removed for good cause by a vote of the board, or the governor can remove that person in particularly egregious cases. If the director commits a crime, if there's some kind of emergency. But otherwise, we're trying to maintain the independence of the Indigent Defense Services because that is part of an important functional judicial system and democracy, is that you don't have the same government that's prosecuting somebody intimately involved in their defense. Even though the government appoints the attorney and ensures that they have representation representation, you don't want those two bodies to be one and the same. That would erode the adversarial system. So we're trying to create more independence for the Department of Indigent Defense Services by ensuring that it's the board that oversees the executive director and has the power to discipline and remove that director. SB 407 also changes the way that the state public defender is hired, and instead of being appointed by the governor, if SB 407 were to pass, the state public defender, who remember kind of oversees that one branch of the Department of Indigent Defense Services, that person would be hired by the executive director. So they would be recruited, vetted, hired pretty much like any other employee. Think about any of our other agencies that have an agency head, the Department of Health and Human Services, DCNR, Department of Education. The heads might be appointed by the governor, but when it comes to hiring even the very top level administrators, those people turn in applications like everybody else. They go through an interview process and they're hired by, in this case, the executive director of the Department of Indigent Defense Services. And I want to make sure I get this right about their discipline. And they're treated like pretty much like any other employee, so they also can't be removed without good cause. And the reason that we're doing all of this is to comply with the Davis Decree. I think you guys have heard about the Davis Decree at this point. We meaning the state of Nevada, have already settled a lawsuit about our provision of indigent defense services. The Davis Decree is the living document that governs what we have to provide in the state in order to be in compliance with the court. And SB 407 conforms with that, and also is kind of forward-looking. The partners who came to the table included the ACLU, who was a litigant in the original Davis case. It included the Department of Indigent Defense Services, the governor's office, and the courts, so that we're basically trying to be proactive here and make good decisions for the independence of the Department of Indigent Defense Services instead of utilizing the courts to litigate their independence. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. With that, our first question is from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation and this important bill. I actually was part of the last selection process in the former governor's office, and so I'm very familiar with that process. And can you just speak a little bit more about how this would actually bring in the hiring process for both the executive director and the public defender, state public defender, in line with what we already do in other counties, where the county commission, the boards, actually do that appointment process?
Melanie Scheibel, for the record. Thank you. Great question. As you mentioned, in Clark County and Washoe County, the public defender is appointed by the county commission. They go through a rigorous application process and a vetting process where, experts are able to ask about their experience in the courtroom, ask about their approach to indigent defense, ask about their legal education, ask about their philosophy on representing clients, on managing offices, things like that. And there are numerous checks and balances in that process because it's public facing, because a county commission takes a vote on appointing that person. And we were lacking that at the state level because, of course, we don't have a state board of county commissioners. And so what we have instead is a state board of indigent defense services. And so by bringing the board more into the decision-making process, we do mirror better what happens at the county level for accountability, for transparency, and bringing forward the highest quality candidates.
Thank you, Chair Scheibel, for this bill. Our next question will come from Assemblymember Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. She's quick at reading because that was a real quick message I sent just now. Sorry, let me pull the bill back up. Thank you for being here. And in regards to, I wanted to just get some clarification on the amended version. In where we have I'm just kind of looking at the legend part. I'm right in there where it says, must be an attorney eligible, and we struck out licensed to practice law in the state of Nevada pursuant to the rules of the Nevada Supreme Court. Can you tell me the reasoning there? I'm assuming eligible, but then they would get their license, right?
Melanie Scheibel, for the record, Mr. Handy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were contemplating the situation in which perhaps somebody had retired and deactivated their license, but there was no malpractice or discipline. They just weren't active for some reason and were coming back to Nevada or coming out of retirement and would have to reactivate their license in order to practice.
Good morning. Peter Handy, Executive Director, Department of Energy and Defense Services. I'll just add that part of it was so they have the ability to make a nationwide search. So attorneys licensed in other states could be eligible to practice law in the state of Nevada. They're already licensed elsewhere. And this would give the board the ability, should they so choose in the future, to look outside of the state for better qualified candidates. Ideally, right, we want to hire the best qualified personnel to work in state government. So that would give the board the opportunity to do that. A little more flexibility than they currently have.
Thank you.
We're on the same wavelength.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, that could be scary for you. It does. Thank you for clarifying that. And then in regards to, your explanation, Senator Scheibel, about what we're seeing, particularly in rural counties, is really true. And in all candor, and I feel really comfortable asking you this. So on the Senate side, it's changed, and there was some partisanship there in the vote. I'm just curious, as I look at what the changes are, it's making a lot of sense to me. If you could maybe elaborate a little bit about, in a summary version of what has changed, maybe got people more comfortable, and maybe address in that the governor portion being eliminated and an executive director. It's making sense to me. Maybe are we trying to avoid partisan or political appointments, which I get. But if you could kind of summarize some changes that have occurred.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Melanie Scheibel, for the record. I'll start by saying that I was a little bit surprised that this came out of my House party lines. I think that part of the reason has to do with the process that we're in here. SB 407, frankly, was an entirely different bill when we started. And the issues with the independence of the executive director of the Department of Energy and Defense Services, as well as the public defender, those were ongoing conversations when we first came into session. And I think it's fair to say there wasn't necessarily a plan to even address that during this session until stakeholders were able to get together and come to an agreement, which didn't happen until I think April or May. And so at that point, we happened to have SB 407 as a vehicle that we completely transformed into this new bill. And I don't think that we had a lot of time to explore that, discuss that really on the Senate side. And so I think that it's justified for anybody in this body to be skeptical when a bill is gutted and replaced. And if we don't have the time to thoroughly review it as a body, I think sometimes that leads to no votes. Since the first reprint, there have not been changes. The gut and replace has been complete, I guess you would say. We're also still happy to discuss changes. I know it is late, but if there are particular issues with the bill as it stands, it's not that we're closed off to conversation, but this was an unexpected change. But I would also say it was kind of lucky that we happened to be able to have these conversations during a session. We happened to still have a vehicle open, and we could have said, oh no, let's just wait for 2 more years because it's scary to go out and replace a bill. But instead, we said, no, we have the vehicle. This is good policy. Maybe we do need some more time to explain it and answer all of the questions. But to your point, the idea is to give more independence to the Department of Indigent Defense Services. I think that's a policy that we should all get behind because it doesn't matter who the governor is. This will continue in perpetuity so that no governor has the ability to make a political appointment or a political removal of a director or a state public defender. And so I think that not only is it good policy, it reflects an agreement between parties that will serve our state well.
You're welcome. Our next question is from Assemblymember Cole.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is really related to the makeup of the board and how the board functions and everything. So you give us sort of an overview of that, like how long their terms are, how many people they are, how the members are appointed, that kind of thing. Thank you.
Sure, Peter Handy for the record. So there are 13 board seats. They're appointed by various authorities. 3 of them are appointed by members of the legislature, 1 by the Supreme Court of Nevada. There are 4 that are submitted by the Nevada Association of Counties and typically are current or former Board of County Commissioners members. There's 1 that's selected by one of the affinity bars in Nevada that's an attorney practicing law. And there's at least a couple of those that I can't remember off the top of my head. But these come from a variety of places. Many are selected by some other body like NACO, and then those are appointed by the governor. Some are directly appointed. So the Speaker of the Assembly selects 1, the Senator selects 1, and those are direct appointments to the board. The Supreme Court's a direct appointment to the board. So these are all members coming from different places.
Thank you so much for that. With that, I do have a few questions. And so this is not the first time I'll say it. As a general statement and my principles, and someone who works under a license in a department where it really agitates me when people leading the department are not licensed to do what I'm licensed to do in the state of Nevada. And so, you know, I believe that as a state, we should be working at why don't we feel we have better candidates or people here in Nevada standing up. I know that's not about this bill. It's about a bunch of other reasons that the state needs to address, correct? And so I would prefer, obviously, a Nevadan, and as I know you would as well, Nevadans first, and we have amazing people in our state, people from all over the planet, and yet there's other reasons why we may not have people stepping up to apply for such multiple positions here. But with that, would there be an expectation if someone is barred in another state, they get this job? Would there be an expectation? Because we've also had that situation before, too, in elected office where someone wasn't barred in the state of Nevada. So would there be any expectation to that, like a time frame?
Melanie Scheibel, for the record, yes, I think they would still be required to become a member in good standing.
Peter Handy, it doesn't say that in the bill itself. It just says eligible to practice. Is my read on it. I think if the person were selected for that position and did not become a licensed member of the State Bar of Nevada, they'd lose a lot of credibility to be successful in that position. I think it'd be reasonable for the board to ask candidates whether they intended to become licensed in the state should they be selected. And so that might actually create a funnel sort of to only persons who would become licensed in Nevada.
Melanie Scheibel, for the record, further, I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to argue that this person wasn't practicing law. So I think they would have to get a Nevada license. Otherwise, they'd be liable to be prosecuted for practicing law without a license in Nevada. So I don't see any way around them actually getting licensed here.
Okay, great, because I'm not trying to dig through every NRS right now for all of those tiny details that's probably somewhere in the NRS hidden, but just to make sure, and again, it's a credibility issue, right? Like, and my other question goes back to, I really appreciate the way that there have been some parameters put in place, because we know there is a risk with appointed positions. And so I see some parameters put in place for the executive director. As Chair said, these would be the reasons the executive director could be released, which again, average person's gonna agree with and support. However, the executive director is still an appointment of the governor. And so again, whoever that governor is, whenever, at any point, they still have the ability to appoint someone who is going to be loyal to them and maybe not as loyal to the position. And so how do we then protect the state public defender? So we have a state public defender who has now been basically, with board input, hired. But what protections then do we have in place for that state public defender?
So Peter Handy, if I could, so there's kind of two tiers happening here. The board selects and submits 3 candidates to the governor for the executive director position, and the governor selects that position. Right now, the governor appoints the state public defender directly, and then that person's responsible to the executive director of the department. Under this change, the executive director would appoint or hire that public defender position. There's no statutory provision in this that would provide additional protection, but they're still only responsible to the executive director, who then has those protections that are enumerated here from interference from the governor's office, absent the extraordinary circumstances mentioned. I hope that answers your question. Effectively, the executive director serves as kind of the shield for that position.
Right, I see that. We know that appointments are usually people that support certain agendas, right? And I'm saying this in a very apolitical way. And so I just want to make sure, again, it doesn't matter who the governor is, that executive director is most likely going to be loyal to that governor, unless the board really has an ability to truly present some very apolitical, non-political, individuals. I'm just wondering where's that protective shield then for the public defender?
So I think that's in part the responsibility of the board, right? So if the executive director is acting inappropriately or acting more politically than they should for the exercise in their position, right? If in exercising that judgment they might terminate or appoint somebody that's too political for the board can still remove the executive director for any good cause, right? And that might be good cause under some circumstances if they're taking too political of an action or they don't have a reasonable justification for appointing or removing somebody from that state public defender position.
Okay, thank you. Because I see the bill really is trying to put those protections in place. And so I do appreciate that. So I don't see any additional questions at this time. So with that, I will go ahead and open it up for testimony in support of Senate Bill 407. Reminding folks they have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Atar Hasibulla, first name spelled Athar, last name Jasseebullah. I'm the Executive Director for the ACLU of Nevada. I probably lost 20 seconds having to spell out my name every time, but it is what it is. We're in strong support of SB 407. Just for context, the Davis case that is being referenced was brought by ACLU of Nevada, ACLU National, our outside counsel at O'Melveny Myers, Franny Forsman, and others. We have a working group. The state's almost always in technical noncompliance with the Davis consent agreement, but we're grateful for this bill being brought forward. Just to touch on a couple points, it is very, very difficult to find an executive director for that office. It's also difficult to find attorneys that are willing to work and do this work, period. There is not a massive pool of applicants. In fact, there's oftentimes next to no pool of applicants. It's a very, very challenging role to be in. So we're grateful for those that have stepped up, like Peter, to that task. But this is one step to help delay a reopening of this litigation. So I will say, from my vantage point, it's an almost essential. I'll also add that we do have a lot of issues, and I heard the questions with respect to whether or not someone will be admitted here. Obviously, as a licensed attorney in the state of Nevada and licensed elsewhere, we always view that as an important criteria. But sometimes the best ideas, primarily when it comes to this, come from litigators that are outside of the state that may end up providing value into it. And not to go into the depths of the discussion there, because I know I've heard you speak about this, Chair Miller, but also Senator Scheibel before, with respect to the sort of process we have for selecting justice of the peace in rural counties. They don't even have to be lawyers. So, and they're making decisions over liberty, which I think is a far greater issue at this point. But with that, we're in strong support of SB 407. Highly encourage the committee to get this work session and move forward. Thank you. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any for us as well. I think I'm still under my two. Oh, there we go. Thanks.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City in support? Not seeing anyone here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Then I'll open it up for opposition testimony. Not seeing any opposition here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Then I'll open it up for neutral testimony. Not seeing any here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Chair, the public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will welcome Chair Scheibel. I do have a question for you. Thank you. And I know that this is not a money committee, but I'm going to ask it anyways. How much do you feel the salary impacts our ability to draw from a more robust pool?
Melanie Scheibel for the record. I certainly think that is a factor, especially when you think about what attorneys make in private practice. Almost anybody who would leave private practice to become a public defender anywhere, but especially the state public defender or executive director, would have to take a pay cut to do so.
Thank you so much. Any final remarks?
Just thank you for hearing the bill.
Okay, thank you so much. And then with that, we will go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 407. Last on our agenda today is public comment. Just a reminder that public comment is about making comments that are under the purview of this committee, but not additional remarks on any bills that we heard today. So starting here in Carson City, if there's anyone that would like to make public comment. Not seeing anyone here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
Public line is open and working, and there are no callers for public comment.
Thank you so much. Then with that, I will go ahead and close public comment. We have completed our business for today, and I will let you know that we will be back bright and early tomorrow at... Did you say 8? No. You said no, 8. Okay, at 9 a.m. See you all tomorrow at 9 a.m.